Hi, welcome to the Food Waste and Composting, a conversation with Cowboy Compost. This is part of the UNTHSC on-demand video series for the UNTHSC Virtual Earth Day 2021. Today we have Elliott. He's the Manager of Operations and Master Composter with Cowboy Compost, here to talk about food waste and composting and opportunities here in our region. Eric, we are so excited to have you here today, and I will let you take it over.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Sandy. And it's a real pleasure to be able to do this, to be able to participate in the Virtual Earth Day this year. We have Cowboy Compost has been able to participate in previous events with the UNT Health Science Center, and we're really proud and happy to be participating in this one. So thank you so much for having me. Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and get into my very favorite topic, composting, and specifically Cowboy Compost, a little bit about what we do and why we do it. So again, my name is Elliott. I am the operations manager and master composter for Cowboy Compost. So all of the daily operations going on, trucks and bins and sales, account managing, all of that is stuff that I work on and take the lead on here. So really, I just want to give a quick introduction about Cowboy Compost and what we do, how, answer some questions, hopefully, that folks might have about composting and how we do it. A little bit more about me. I have managed a composting facility in Washington State. I did that for a few years. Previous to that, my first experience working with composting was actually in the state of Colorado. It really was just this magical moment for me. I realized, wow, what is this composting thing? How can I get involved? This seems like something that's going to change the world. So I wanted to be a part of it. And I'm so fortunate that when I moved back to Texas, I'm a native Texan. And when I moved back to the North Texas area, I was really happy to start working with Cowboy Compost. And so let's go ahead and get into Cowboy Compost. So Cowboy Compost is, people ask me all the time, what is Cowboy Compost? Is it a composting company? Is it a waste hauler? Is it a consulting company? And the answer is yes, yes, and yes. But primarily, we are a zero waste company. And you can see down at the very bottom that definition of zero waste. We are striving to reduce waste. And we understand that in today's world, it is really hard to get down to zero. Down to below 5%, we know we're doing well. And so our goal is to help others in the North Texas community by composting, by recycling, by finding out different ways to organize their operations. We can get people to adopt a zero waste lifestyle, and we're here to help that happen. So a little part of how we do that is by offering services. We do education and consulting for anyone. It doesn't matter if you're a school, if you're, just like, have questions, if you have questions about your backyard compost pile, right? All the way up to, a big food manufacturing facility, looking at an assembly line and trying to streamline that. We do all that education and consulting, as well as picking up compostable waste. So that includes food scraps. And we are unique. If you look down at the bottom, we collect both post and pre-consumer food scraps, which is rather unique in the Texas area. What that means is we're collecting food scraps from, say, the kitchen that has that has leftover ends and bits and pieces of food that they can't sell. But we're also collecting the leftovers that are after they've been sold, after someone has taken those groceries home, and they no longer need them. Maybe food has gone bad, or maybe they're just old leftovers and scraps that we aren't using. That's something that we can accept and do something really special with. I'll get into what exactly we do with it in a little bit. And then this fourth bullet point here, our distribution of compostable items. That includes distributing bags, plates, and tableware that is compostable. That's an alternative to the plastic products you might have out there for those standard non-compostable products, as well as sharing high quality, locally produced compost that goes into gardens and landscaping all across North Texas. Taking that resource, food scraps, compostable waste, and turning it back into soil and putting it directly back into the soil and the ecosystem of North Texas. So a little bit about how we started. It's a fascinating story. We were started in in 2016, and there's Miguel. You can see his picture right there. There's a fantastic Fort Worth magazine article about the beginnings of Cowboy Compost. But Joanna Calderon and Miguel Harth-Bodea, they teamed up in 2016. Miguel had this realization that there's a lot of waste in North Texas and in the Fort Worth area. And he has been a lifelong environmental advocate and activist. And he brought his vision and his experiences to this problem of how much waste there was. And he started thinking about how we can start reducing waste, where we need to reduce waste most efficiently and effectively. And so he started talking to people. And one day, as the story goes, he hops in his car and he follows the trash truck and this is a little bit of what he saw.
You know, we've gone from a 50-year shelf life down to about 25-year shelf life in just a little more than 5 years. And so it's great that we have a booming economy, but we also have a resource here that's not infinite. And so we've really got to work hard on diversion, getting people to reuse items, recycle items, do everything they possibly can, other than just throwing stuff in the trash cart and thinking that everything will be good tomorrow, because it's not going to be if we continue down this road.
Right. So in his conversations and in his observations, he noticed that we have this problem in Fort Worth, that the landfill is filling up quicker than anticipated. That we've gone, again, as they say in the video, we've gone from a 50-year shelf life down to a 25-year shelf life. So we've got all this trash and it's piling up, and we need to find a way to reduce that waste and do it in a way that's going to extend the lifespan of the landfill, because a new landfill is extremely hard and extremely expensive and difficult to do. So then we continued that research, and by we, I mean Miguel. Miguel continued his research and found this fascinating study from the city of Fort Worth. They had analyzed all the waste going to that landfill, the Southeast Fort Worth landfill, and they discovered something very interesting. Right here in blue, this food waste is about 30% after recycling. It's about 30% of what's getting sent to the landfill. Yard trimmings right here is another 5%. Both food and yard trimmings are easily compostable items. Now that doesn't even get into paper And who knows what's in this other category, right? But some of that might be items that are also compostable. Maybe not as easy to compost as food or yard trimmings, but paper and other compostable paper-esque items that can be composted. We started doing the math and realizing that about at least a third of what's getting sent to the landfill could be composted instead of sent to a landfill. And that was kind of this very exciting revelation. So Miguel teamed up with Joanna, a family friend of his and a local entrepreneur, and they started passing out buckets and collecting food scraps because, you know, if we're going to do waste diversion, let's focus on that third of what we're sending to the landfill. Let's get that and do something good with it. And so the solution that they came up with was collecting those food scraps and those really easy to compost items like food, and take them to a composting facility instead of a landfill. So starting out with just buckets, a few part-time employees and volunteers, and at first there was, you know, just a pilot program with a couple members of the Fort Worth Symphony Orchestra, a few neighbors here and there, borrowing a pickup truck, and from there it grew and grew. Within the first 2 years, it really grew into something that was, you know, had a lot more participation than Miguel could have ever hoped. So with that momentum that picked up, we decided, hey, let's create a company. So it became Cowboy Compost, and we are going strong today. This is, you know, our 5th year of existence now. We're still young, still figuring it out, but we've grown and grown every year. And yeah, we're excited to be doing this. So what exactly are we doing, right? We're taking those food scraps and we're taking them to composting facilities. We don't currently own our own composting facility. We're not doing that part of it quite yet. We hope to someday soon. But for right now, we're connecting all of you in Fort Worth, everyone that eats, that has food scraps, that should be most of us. And we're taking that resource and putting it into a composting system locally that can turn it into a finished product that can then go into gardens and landscaping in the area. So those are some of our partners that we work with, and I can recommend great products from all of them. So now, I know I put a definition up earlier about what composting is. It's breaking apart organic matter into more basic and simpler components. That's pretty much it. It's just decomposition, right? It's a fancy word for decomposition. It's a natural process. If you look at the really cute diagram we have here, I want you to think back to biology class and think of the carbon cycle or the nitrogen cycle or even the water cycle. You have all of those cycles going on in the composting process. You're taking these nutrients from something complex, breaking them down into something that that plants, animals, you know, even little bacteria and fungi can use to create energy to build back into something complex again. Now, not to dwell on landfills, right? But this is the alternative to a landfill, where all that matter is just going to sit there. And if it does decompose at all, it's going to be turning into CO2 and methane. Methane being a very powerful greenhouse gas, about 32 to 35% more harmful than CO2 is for a greenhouse effect. And landfills, like I said, they don't break down often. That stuff gets entombed in there, and they're fascinating studies where folks have drilled down into a landfill to discover newspapers from the 1970s that are still legible, guacamole that is still green in a landfill. There's no air getting to it. There's nothing breaking it down, right? So we're, instead of entombing things in landfill, which is what we typically do in Texas, instead we're introducing them into this more natural process, right? So some specifics about that natural process, because composting, like, I like to think of it as sorry, the word just escaped my mind. It's decomposition plus a little extra. So it's human controlled decomposition. So we're kind of speeding the decomposition, the natural process, we're speeding it up a little bit. And the way that we do that, and this is the way that all composting works, whether it's in our big composting facility or in your backyard bin. You know, if you've got a little pile in the backyard or one of those things that you turn in your backyard, the science is effectively the same no matter where you're doing it. So you're taking, sorry, I've got a cat distracting me as well, if you can't hear her in the background.
No,
but
that's good.
the math.
She sounds like she needs you.
Uh-oh. There she is. Okay, well, so essentially you're starting with these feedstocks. You're starting with food waste or greens, that's stuff that's high in nitrogen, high in water content. So these are the greens right here, the fruit and food scraps in that picture. And you're mixing it with about 2 parts brown or yard waste. So this is stuff that's higher in carbon. And you can see it as the brown matter here in the picture. And again, you're actually using a lot more of that carbon material, the browns, than you are the greens, the food scraps. And that's because you want to get your carbon to nitrogen ratio to about 1 part nitrogen to 30 parts carbon. That's your sweet spot right there. You want to add water. Water is an essential part of this process because it's a natural process and we're not going to be doing the work. Little little biomes are going to be doing the work for you. So think fungi, bacteria, those are going to be our friends in this process. And just like us, they need food. That's what you're giving them in those feedstocks, and they need water. Now, they also need air, just like us, they're respirating. So I like to think of them as my coworkers, right? When we drop off our food scraps into the compost pile, we've got billions and billions of coworkers in that pile already. They're already in those food scraps. They're in the air around us. They're in our microbiomes. I think folks at the UNT Health Science Center are going to be aware of just how much bacteria is in the world around us at all times, right? Well, we're using those natural bacteria. They're going to start breaking this stuff down for us, but to do it effectively, to do it a little quicker, and to do it in a way that won't produce odors that salmonella and E. coli, some of the things that we don't want in our finished compost, we're going to focus on mixing, piling, and aerating, watering. We're really going to treat our pile nicely because we want to make sure that all those little microbes in there are happy. And when they're happy, they're breaking down all the food matter, all the browns in there, and they're, again, biodegrading them in a way that is a little quicker than they normally would. So this is a different process depending on how you do it. In your backyard pile, right? You're gonna mix it, you're gonna water it, and you might turn it every couple of days, maybe once a week. That's really all you need to do. You're never gonna get it to go super quickly in a small backyard pile. However, when you start working with the industrial scale that we're working at, you can get it to go a little quicker. We're piling it up a little bigger. We're getting a temperature up, just like how we have an internal temperature. Those microbes, the fungi, the yeasts, the bacteria that we're using, they have an internal temperature that they like. We want to get them up to about 130 degrees for about 3 days at a time, up to about a week at a time. And that's a process called PFRP. It's a process for reducing pathogens. So we're getting it to a nice hot temperature where we're cooking out any of those bad bacteria like E. coli or Salmonella. We're breaking down weed seeds, for example. We don't want weeds to get into our compost and then you spread them out in your garden and then you have weeds, right? We don't want that to happen. So we get them to this nice hot temperature and we turn and water. And in about 10 to 12 weeks, we should have finished compost. That's at the industrial scale, right? At your backyard scale, it might take a little longer than that, right? The science is the same. It's just the time frame changes on the scale that you use it. So then we test it, and our partners are testing it to make sure, hey, it's got all the nutrients that it's supposed to have, and it doesn't have those nasty germs that we killed off. And you end up with something really beautiful. There we go. That's what I wanted to show you. You end up with something really beautiful, that finished compost. If you're familiar with it, you can almost smell that earthy smell that it has. And this stuff is going to have nitrogen, it's going to have carbon, it's going to have all those little macro and micronutrients that you find in healthy soil. Let's go back to this video. This shows one of our composting partners. This is a facility that we work closely with. And you can just see the scale at which they're doing it, the size of these piles, right? This isn't your backyard composting. This is something a little bigger. Let's see how they do it here. Oops. All right. So there we are. So we're dropping off food scraps here. You can see where we've dropped off a first load before this, and we're adding it to the front edge of this really large flat pile here. So we've got a big flat pile of compost that we've started with, and we're adding our food scraps, as well as right next to it, this light brown material. That's actually sawdust that's been added to it. So you've got your browns, you've got your greens, and we've got water up overhead. And we've got those 3 essential food stocks going. And then eventually, once it goes through this big flat pile where it's turned regularly, where it's aerated regularly, it's going to end up in one of these larger piles over here, where it's going to mature for a little while. And it's going to get to a nice, healthy, dark, rich color after it's, again, kind of like a fine cheese or a wine, right? We're going to mature it just a little bit at the tail end to get it into something that we can bag up and bring to your doorstep. That's going to, sit well in that bag. It's not going to develop any odors. It's done composting. It's not going to compost anymore. It's ready to go at that stage. And all of that, again, you're taking about 10 to 12 weeks to do that whole process, to get it to look like something like that. So that's a little bit about what we do. Let's just talk a little bit about what you can do. Everyone here watching this video, right? You might be asking, well, okay, great. How can I get involved? And the first step is going to be to reduce the waste that you produce already, right? That's always the first R. Reduce, reuse, recycle. We want to, find ways. And again, this is something you can reach out to us if you've got questions. Hey, what are some shopping tips? We can share links and info with you about how to make sure that you're buying a little less, that you're buying a little more responsibly, so that you don't end up with a lot of waste at the end of each week, right? You can compost at home. For that, we love home composters. We love people that garden at home. We love to hear from them. We highly encourage that. If you're in an apartment, if you're busy and you just don't have the time to manage your own composting pile, which it does take time, it does take space, right? We understand that, and that's why we're here to help connect you with those big composting facilities. You can compost with us, with your local composting company, right? And this image here, these compostables, these are all things that we can take. So again, we're pretty unique in that we can take your post and pre-consumer food scraps. We can take meat and dairy, even if it's been cooked. We can take things like parchment paper and compostable products. So that's anything that's marked as compostable. The word compostable is a regulated word, sort of like the word organic, right? So when you see the word organic printed on your spinach at the grocery store, that means that it has passed a couple of tests that the EPA has said, yes, this is certified organic. Same thing with compostable. If you see compostable marked on something, that means it's passed a few tests. It means it's approved to go into one of our partner facilities and get turned into the soil in about 10 to 12 weeks. If it says biodegradable, that's not the same, right? If it says natural, that doesn't mean compostable, right? So again, you're really looking for that word compostable when dealing with us, right? So we do have that residential doorstep collection. And this is just a little bit about what that looks like. And again, it's a program that we are very proud of. You get your own bin, you get it collected and emptied and sanitized every week. And again, it's something that we're trying to do, try to make accessible to every resident in Fort Worth. So most Fort Worth addresses are, we do offer this service, and we offer it at a low cost. It's, we're always trying to bring that cost down, but $20 per month, $5 per pickup is generally the lowest price you're going to see for something like this. And I think it's important to remember that you do pay to have your trash and recycling picked up. It might be hidden in your water bill, right? But you are paying for some kind of disposal cost for this matter already. And so, we try and keep our costs in line with what people are already paying to throw it into the garbage pail. We're just offering a slightly different alternative to that garbage can, right? If we have the time to, tell you what, I'll come.
I actually have a question real quick about this. Do people compost if they live in an apartment? Can they still participate in this?
Yes, they can. We do apartment addresses. We do, gated communities. We're always happy to work with you wherever you are, as long as you can help us get, the gate codes and, work with your apartment manager to make sure that it's something that works well for everyone involved. But we're always happy to try and find a way to get to you.
Awesome. And then also, is there a way or have you seen where sometimes the entire apartment complex participates from a management level and not necessarily an apartment level?
We have not gotten to that level quite yet. We're working in a couple different neighborhoods to try and get an entire apartment complex to work with us. There's also been some talk with with TCU as far as, we've got dormitories, right? How about trying something like that at a dormitory or an apartment complex? So far, we haven't tried that yet, but we're looking forward to the day when we can. We do work with schools and other businesses that are doing something like this, and I'll get to that too. But for right now, it's kind of a reach out to us, and we'll come and meet you wherever you are, and have a conversation with the apartment complex owner or whoever we need to, if that's necessary.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, if you don't, if getting us coming to you might be more expensive, might be difficult for various reasons, we do also offer the option for you to come to us. We do have a drop-off program. This is something that we're really excited about. We've got over 1,000 subscribers, and this is something that we've partnered with the city of Fort Worth to offer. It's a pilot program, but it's really going well so far. We've seen very encouraging results. Lots of people are using it. Our contamination levels, the stuff that's not supposed to go into the bins, those levels are really low. And we've had 13, soon to be 14 drop-off locations. All you have to do, I could give you a website, but really all you have to do is Google, type into your search bar, Fort Worth, City of Fort Worth composting. And this website will pop up. And you sign up online. It's a one-time fee. It gets you a bucket. It gets you a code to use any of those drop-off locations. You just find the one that's nearest you, fill up that bucket, and you come and dump it whenever, however it works best for you. We have folks who, they have their bucket at home, they fill it up during the week, and then once a week when, say they're going to work, for example, there's a drop-off location near where they work, they're dropping it off after work one day or something like that. So again, this is a program we're really excited about. It's going well. This is our 3rd year offering it, and so far it's been a huge success. Eventually, we want to keep working with the city of Fort Worth to expand this program, and also to expand our curbside collection program, where potentially someday it will be even easier for us to come to you, or even easier for you to come to us, either way. We do zero waste events. So we haven't done a whole lot of these in 2020. However, everything from weddings to, we've had events at the UNT Health Science Center, and
yeah, that's
again,
right. We had it. Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt you. We had it at the. We celebrated our community garden 5-year anniversary back at the end of 2019. Yeah. We were happy to have y'all service that event. So we look forward to more as COVID comes to an end. So.
And we do too. Honestly, we have missed these the outdoor events, the rock and roll marathon. We nothing is too big, nothing is too small. We are happy to bring a bin by for a birthday party or whatever it is you've got going on. Really just reaching out to us to get the ball rolling on that. Again, once we have more of those events coming up, that's something that we're really happy to offer. And then, like I mentioned, we work with schools, we work with cafeterias all over the Fort Worth area. That includes restaurants and kitchens of all sizes. That goes from a small coffee shop all the way up to a food processing facility where they need one of our big 20-yard dumpsters. We do a little bit of everything. I think it's important to note that about 70% of what goes to the landfill, remember that graph of all the stuff going to landfill, about 70% of that is coming from businesses, not from homeowners. It's not coming from you and me, it's coming from those big businesses, which are also you and me, but right, it's important to get businesses on board. And so we work really closely with businesses. There's Miguel, you know, doing his thing, trying to get someone to downgrade that dumpster. Because if you're working with us, if you're filling up your 96-gallon totes with compost, maybe you don't need that 6-yard dumpster. Maybe you can downgrade your garbage collection to once a week instead of twice a week. We do try and work really closely, especially with these companies, to offset whatever costs our program might hold, to offset those with savings with a reduced trash collection. And in fact, we've seen great success.
I do just want to say, sorry to interrupt again, but I know I'm going to get asked this from our students, but we were looking at doing this before the pandemic hit, and we definitely want to pick it back up in our cafes on campus. We don't have any dormitories, but we do have a couple cafes that we definitely want to get Cowboy Compost to service, hopefully, you know, later this spring, this summertime. So,
well, and you know how to find us. We're
yes.
you know, we're a young company, like I said, but that also means that we're flexible, that we're really excited to find a way to do this that fits in seamlessly with how you're already doing things on campus, how you're already doing things at your big food manufacturing facility, whatever it is. You know, we want to fit seamlessly into what's already going on. Because again, all we're doing is taking stuff that you're already producing. You've already got all that food scrap, all the food scraps, the paper towels, all that stuff that's compostable. And instead, we're just offering a slightly different bin that goes to a slightly different place, that returns it to the ecosystem, and instead of putting it in a landfill, right? Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, right, what does the future look like? Well, in 2020 and 2021, it's hard to say what the future will look like, but we're hoping to expand in every direction. We're hoping to expand our collection services, but also trying to open our own facility down the road. That's something that's really exciting for us. We're already working on that. And eventually, we hope to have guided tours. I hope to see you out at the Cowboy Composting facility, where I can lead a guided tour or something like that. We'll get there eventually. But for now, again, we're just increasing our awareness, you know, trying to talk to as many people as we can about composting and reducing waste, the concept of zero waste, and how it can really work in Fort Worth, in North Texas. You know, there are parts of the country where this has really taken off over the last decade. Even parts of Texas, looking at San Antonio, Austin, they've both created these really robust composting programs. So it's just a matter of time before North Texas is doing the same, because again, our landfills are running out of space, and this is a really easy way to reduce the amount of stuff that we're sending to a landfill and create a whole new economy, a whole new system of, you know, recycling in an organic sense, returning our, you know, what could be called waste, but is really a resource, returning that resource into the natural ecosystem again, into the soil. So with that, please reach out and get in touch with us. You can ask me really anything. Doesn't matter if it's a question about your compost pile at home, if it's a question about getting service started, or getting just finding out, hey, what could I put into that bin? What do you guys accept? I'm always happy to answer any of those questions.
That's
and
great.
Yeah, with that, Sandy, do you have any questions, comments?
I just had a couple follow-up questions, but again, I want to reiterate, if you have any other questions for Eric, please feel free to email them and reach out if you want to get this service for you. on our end, with the Office of Sustainability, we'll be working on getting the Health Science Center even more involved in compost here this year. But, I was really struck by the graphic you showed that really prompted the creation of Cowboy Compost with the 30% and really, that extra yard trimmings. But has there been another study that showed if that number has decreased because of the efforts?
That's a good question. Yeah, let's go back to that graphic. So this is from a study, the solid waste management plan that is designed or was designed to run through, 2037 down there.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, we hope it's not set in stone, but this is what the city and local, the local municipalities that use this landfill, this is what they're gonna base all of their predictions off of for, through 2037 for the next 20 years or so. So again, this is what we're going off of now. There hasn't been anything as comprehensive done since then, but we collect our own data. So I can tell you a little bit more about that.
Sure.
Over the existence of the company, over the last about 4 years, we've collected and diverted about 2,000 tons of material from the landfill that would be going to the landfill and taken it to a local composting facility instead. Just last year in 2020, and this took a dip because of school closures, because some of the hotels we work with didn't have as much for us, right? But just over 2020, we were close to 980 tons collected and diverted over that year. So from what I can tell you about us, we are definitely seeing an impact. We're looking at hundreds of tons, hopefully about 100 tons per, about 1,000 tons per year.
Yes.
That is getting diverted from the landfill. And the politics of waste and recycling in general are kind of always changing. Just over the last 10 years, for example, we've seen a lot less newspaper and a lot more cardboard as everybody has deliveries to their front door now, right? So that's a lot more cardboard that's getting sent to recycling centers. That was never the case until, again, the last decade or so. So it is always shifting. We would love to see less food scraps getting thrown out in the first place. We would love to help folks purchase a little differently, donate food scraps, or unused food a little more effectively. And so again, there are lots of ways to make a dent in what we're sending to the landfill. And we're playing just one part of that. Yes. With the food scraps.
That's great. I mean, it's such an important part. And just a plug for some of our other videos that you spurred me to say. So for the Virtual Earth Day for 2020, we're also recording a video on sustainability in the kitchen. And a lot has to do with not, generating as much food waste. And, even when you're looking at purchasing, of course, trying to keep your vegetables and fruits lasting longer and only buying, what you'll eat that week. So I think that's really important. One of our other talks is on recycling, and we always talk about contamination, and not to mention how the market is changing. But with composting, I'm sure contamination is an issue, and I just wanted to, as people kind of get more involved in this, what is, if you could tell people what's one thing to keep contamination to a minimum, what would be your advice?
That's a great question. I'll try and limit it to just one thing, because our drivers and myself, we're out there inspecting every single load that we collect. Before we're dropping it off at the composting facility, we're required to go through it and pull out anything that isn't compostable. I think a good place to start is thinking about when you think about what's compostable and what's not. If it can go into your mouth, if it's something edible at any point, rather, even if that's like, just kind of like the turkey bone after you're done using it, right? Or the egg shell after you've opened the egg. If it's something edible or vaguely edible, then that's something that we can take. There are lots of fancy compostable items out there. Things like compostable bags that look like they're plastic, that feel like they're plastic. They are made out of a compostable resin. They're using the same ethanol, the corn ethanol and potato ethanol that we're putting into our gas tanks now. They're using that same ethanol to create plastics that are compostable, completely compostable. And there's a temptation to lean into those kinds of products and use those kinds of products. We are, of course, we're happy to take those. However, I think my advice is to try and avoid those when you can. Try to avoid using something disposable when you can. Trying to stick with your glass that can get washed and reused is always going to be a good, effective way to reduce waste. Even if it is compostable, we're happy to see that stuff. The less that we produce in the first place is always going to be a good thing. Yeah. So again, it's really the same thing that a recycling person is going to tell you. The less stuff that you have to put into our bin in the first place means less contamination. So stick with stuff that you can reuse, and you'll always be safe with that.
Yes, that's good. I'm glad that's a good thing to end on, because whenever we were talking about recycling now, we're like, one of the best things you can do is use reusables, because, you kind of remove all those issues with it. So Eric, I just want to thank you so much for this. It was very, very helpful, and something that we've had our students ask for repeatedly over the last few years. So I appreciate you being part of our Virtual Earth Day series. And to all of those viewing, if you want more information about the Office of Sustainability here at the Health Science Center, you can always visit our website at unthsc.edu/sustainability. And again, we look forward to working with Cowboy Compost on our campus, events in the future. And again, thanks so much, Eric.
Thank you, Sandy. And thanks everyone watching. Really appreciate it.